Hello, True Health Seeker, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. If you have blood sugar issues and you're looking to finally resolve them, I would love to work with you. Please go to bloodsugarcoach.com, put in your information, and you'll be able to book a free 30-minute session with me. And we can see how I can help you. I have personally resolved my own type 2 diabetes. I am no longer a diabetic, and I did so with natural medicine. In the last 6 years, I've gone on to help a lot of people to also completely resolve their blood sugar issues so that they now have normal blood sugar. So if you'd like to no longer have blood sugar issues, please go to bloodsugarcoach.com. That's bloodsugarcoach.com. I look forward to working with you and enjoy today's episode. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 209. I am so excited to have with us Nagina Abdullah. She's an amazing health coach. She is so wonderful. I love her work. I love her website. She's been featured on so many places like Business Insider, People.com, Huffington Post, Fox News. Just a fantastic coach. And you're just going to love what we have to learn from Nagina today. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks, Ashley. I'm excited to be here too.
Now, you, as a coach, have a really interesting story. You know, your degree from UC Berkley in molecular and cellular biology, which is so fascinating to me. And I know the listeners would love to hear the science that you incorporate in your health coaching practice. Your website, which is masalabody.com. I definitely want to ask you what does that mean to have a masala body? Because I bet there's a wonderful meaning there. And then you're also giving our listeners a sweet spice cheat sheet, which you're going to explain to us the healing benefits of these sweet spices. And that can be found at masalabody.com/learntruehealth. And the link to that and everything that Nagina does is going to be in the show notes of today's podcast. So you can find all her wonderful goodies there. Nagina, I'd love for you to start by sharing your story, and then we'll get into the story of your website. So tell us about you and what led you to become this awesome health coach that you are today.
Oh, thanks, Ashley. Okay, so I have a actual, and I'm so excited to answer all of those questions, and they're part of my story of how I became a health coach. It's actually a result of a personal transformation, and so for me, I had struggled my entire life to be healthy, to be at the weight that I wanted to be at, and to feel the energy that I knew was possible for me. And so I literally tried pretty much every diet out there as I was in high school, in my 20s. And even going into my 30s, I tried Atkins, Paleo, South Beach, pretty much everything out there I had done. And no matter what I tried, it was such a struggle. I always felt like I loved food just too much to be healthy. And
Don't we all?
That's how I feel. And so that's how I felt, at least. And so I just felt like, I would try for 2 days to be healthy and eat kind of like grilled fish and vegetables. And I could literally barely last 2 days before I would call the pizza guy and then go out to ice cream afterwards. And I just couldn't do that to myself. I felt deprived by eating the kind of healthy diet foods that the weight loss industry was sharing with us that we needed to eat. And so, I moved to New York City. I started working at an extremely demanding job. It was actually the job of my dreams, which was to be a management consultant for a top firm. And this is after graduating from Berkeley from UC Berkeley in molecular and cell biology. I went to get my MBA at NYU in New York, and I started working for a management consulting firm working specifically in healthcare. And I was traveling all around, jumping on trains, going on planes, staying in hotels, eating out all the time. And it was literally just the opposite of a healthy lifestyle, because I had to work 12-plus-hour days, and then go out to eat for every meal. And when I came home, I was not really too exhausted to cook. And so if this sounds already pretty hectic, well, it gets even more. And I added 2 kids on top of that lifestyle.
Wow.
So that, at least I was single at that time, so I didn't have to care for anyone. I mean, I had gotten married, but I didn't really have to take care of kids or anything like that. So then after I started having kids, it was a whole other element of busy, and I just felt myself slipping. And what happened is after I had my daughter, I went to look at myself in the mirror and I just didn't know who was looking back at me. Like I had an extra 20 pounds on my body. It felt like even more. And none of my clothes fit me. I would people like my husband would want to go out to eat or go out and do something in New York, and I wouldn't feel like it because I wouldn't know what to wear, and I wasn't really confident with the clothes that I had, and so I would actually turn down fun things to do because I wasn't confident and I didn't feel good about myself. And um, that is something, I think that like I struggled with, but it really took it to another level when I was sitting at home one day and my kids wanted to play outside and I was too exhausted to go outside with them because I just wanted to stay at home and watch TV. I couldn't imagine going to the park and pushing them on the swings or taking a walk along the water even with them. I just couldn't imagine doing that. And that's when things snapped for me. I thought, this is it's one thing to not feel good about myself, which I don't think is good anyway, but now it's about my family and it's about my kids, and I don't think I'm going to be the mom that I want to be. I'm not going to have the energy that I want to have. I'm not going to feel as free to do the things I want to do with them. So I really need to make a shift, and it just happened to me all in that moment. And because of my incredibly busy lifestyle, like I started back traveling after my daughter was 4 months old. And so I realized I don't have time to go to the gym for 2 hours a day, 4 times a week. That's just not the lifestyle I have. I need to make shifts in what I'm eating, because if I can change what I'm eating, I know that I will at least make a pretty good dent in how I feel and my energy, and I'll be able to get back into my clothes. And so that's what I did. I started reading all this information online, and I started reading a lot of books about nutrition and about new ways of thinking. And because of my background in molecular and cell biology and understanding how our hormones worked, I started to adopt new scientific approaches uh, and started to eat differently. And one of the things I did is that I actually, instead of focusing on eating less calories, I focused on the type of foods that I was eating. So I focused on having less sugar in my diet, on having more natural, healthier food, less processed food, and eating slower, healthier carbs versus fast burning like white carbs. And really what I focused on doing was decreasing the inflammation in my body, and really feeling better about what I was putting in my stomach. One of the things that I did along the way is that I started adding spices to what I was eating. And I'll talk about this in more detail with you, Ashley, but spices are incredibly anti-inflammatory, and they actually increase metabolism and have a lot of other health benefits. And what happened is after I made these food changes and started adding these natural spices to my diet, I lost 10 pounds in 1 month without any exercise. And that was a shock to me because I just felt like I was eating food that was amazing, that I loved, and my weight was like dripping off of me. And then I started adding a little bit of workouts. I started adding 2 days of strength training, and then I kept eating the same way, and the weight kept coming off. And within 3 months, I'd lost 20 total pounds, and within 9 months, I had lost 40 total pounds, and that was just with 2 days of exercise a week. So that was really where everything changed for me. Because after I had my two kids, I was 20 pounds overweight, but I lost not only that 20 pounds, but I went down 20 more. And it kind of comes full circle because I had been struggling my entire life to be at a weight that I wanted to be at. And it happened after I had two kids in my mid 30s, and while I had a very demanding job. So I was almost like in complete shock. I didn't think it was possible for me to ever lose that kind of weight and to feel that confident about myself and to have so much energy as a result. But it did. And it was all a result of me really just changing what I was eating.
That's really exciting because a lot of listeners have shared with me that they too, like you said, felt yourself slipping away. I've had a lot of listeners reach out to me and say that, they work two jobs and they come home to take care of their family and they have no time for themselves, and they don't feel like there's any me time, that there's any time left at the end of the day to take care of themselves or even those who have one job. And I have one kid. I don't even imagine what it would be like to have more than one kid, because I feel like one kid is a full-time job. And then on top of that, I've got all these other things I'm doing. So I know exactly what you mean, that the feeling of that slipping away, where you're losing your health, the pounds are piling on, because weight is a symptom. It's not the problem, right? If we look at weight as a symptom of the deeper underlying root, right? And we need to address that underlying root, which it sounds like that's what you did through making healthier food choices, not looking at calories, but looking at healthier food choices, and then adding all these spices, these healing spices, which we definitely want to get into. It sounds like you got to the root cause, and we're able to help your body come back into balance. And once the body comes back into balance, then weight loss becomes so much easier, right? It's not an uphill battle anymore. Is that your experience?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what happened, Ashley, is that it's no longer, and this is really, really, truly, I'm in a whole new place than I used to be, because it's no longer an up and down experience for me. Like, I don't lose 10 pounds and then put it on the next month. I literally changed the way I was eating. And because it tastes so good, and because I feel nourished and full with the food that I'm eating, and it's easy to put it together, all of those are key elements. It's become a habit in my life, and it's something that I actually crave. Like, I never imagined this before, but I actually crave vegetables now. I crave it. I have to have greens in my day, and part of the way that I started doing that was to add flavorful, fat burning, metabolism increasing spices on them. But also the fact that, like, the vegetables themselves and even the other foods that I eat, they're anti-inflammatory. And what happens is I feel so much better. So when I eat now, the way that I feel is like it's a 180 from what I used to feel. I used to eat and I would think that I was kind of treating myself to food that I thought would be like comforting, but I would end up falling asleep and pretty much wasting my afternoon and then feeling really bloated afterwards. And now I feel light and I feel energetic, and I also just feel like in control of my body. And I just love putting good food into it. But it really was a transition of making sure that food tasted good, and that I was really intimate with how everything I was putting in my mouth was making me feel. And once I became very aware of that, it's become so easy to keep my weight off. It's like effortless. Oh, it's almost effortless. Like, I don't even think about it anymore. And I used to be consumed by it.
I love what you just said about that you started listening to your body. That's something that's the consistent message in almost every interview we've done, and we've done over 200 of them. So many health care professionals, naturopaths, chiropractors, massage therapists, acupuncturists, health coaches, they come on the show and they say, in some way or another, they say, listen to the symptoms of your body, because the symptoms are the language of the body. And if you can get in tune, become mindful, and pay attention to those symptoms, then you really can use that to your benefit, right? So, like a diabetic uses the glucometer to test their blood sugar to determine, for example, how much insulin they need. Um, Dr. William Davis was on the show, and he said, instead, if they just use the glucometer as feedback for what they're eating, like, oh wow, my blood sugar's really high, that meal wasn't good. I'm gonna try eating a different way. And they instead of using the glucometer as a measurement for how much insulin they need, use a glucometer as a measurement for what kind of food they're putting into their body, then they can reverse their own diabetes.
Yeah.
And so if we listen to the symptoms of our body, like you said, you were exhausted, you didn't want to go outside with your kids. You listen to your body and go, wait a second, the fuel I'm putting into my body is not working. And then you shifted your fuel and you go, okay, how do I feel now? I mean, use that as a gauge. I just ate a meal 2 hours ago. Do I feel like going out with my kids? And do I have enough energy to go push my kid on a swing? Wow, that meal really worked for my body because I do. Or hey, I feel like I just want to sit on the couch. That meal I had an hour ago clearly is not the fuel my body needs. Right? And so listening to symptoms of the body. Now, you have a background in really understanding the body and health on a cellular level with your degree. How much of what you learned in college did you apply to when you were uncovering these spices and trying to dial in which spices would be very healing for you?
So the part that I really took with me was the hormonal regulation. So really understanding that like insulin release is really key in weight loss. It's not only about calories, it's actually the type of food you're putting in your body is going to signal your insulin to be released either faster or slower. You can actually help to help to control that. And so that was something that I only really took away from that degree, and then from reading people and reading scientific research that had to do with that, with that hormonal release. So a lot of times, like as I was growing up, I just heard about less calories is the biggest thing, and I don't believe that. I mean, there it does make a difference. Like you do need to eat a certain amount of calories. You need to eat less than the energy that you're expending on a daily basis to lose weight, but you also will make it it's also making a difference the types of food that you're putting in your body. So if you're putting 1,200 calories of processed food, first of all, you're not going to feel very full, so you're going to be hungry like very quickly. You could eat 600 calories for breakfast, like with a bagel and cream cheese, pretty much, and then what are you going to do for the rest of the day? You have 600 more calories. That's if you're eating a 1,200 calorie diet. But if you were to eat like fresh broccoli, and if you were to eat grilled fish or even grilled salmon or chicken or tofu, and then you have some lentils on the side and you have eggs, you have some low sugar fruit, you're going to be able to stretch out what you're giving to your body, and you'll be able to live within that 1,200 to 1,500 to 2,000 calorie diet much more easily, because you're understanding that the effect that all those foods have on your hormones. And so it's something similar with spices as well, where spices actually have these amazing health benefits. And the thing that's so fascinating about spices is that they've been used for centuries. Our ancestors have used them. And if you are eating a diet today, when you start eating things that are processed, that we've created in the last 50 to 100 years, there's something that you want to question about that. But if you're using ingredients that we've used for thousands and thousands of years that have been passed down, then that's obviously something that has kept us going as a human species. And so some of the great benefits that spices have are that they're anti-inflammatory. So if you sprinkle a little bit of some spices on your food, and I can go over these in detail with you, Ashley, I can talk to you about 3 spices that are like have extraordinary benefits and that are very easy to use. But on a general level, you can get anti-inflammatory benefits. You can lower your blood sugar, and as a result, what that means is that you store less fat in your body. You can actually decrease water retention. So that means that you decrease bloating in your body, and that's another way to decrease inflammation. And I'm talking about inflammation so much because inflammation is actually, like, if you're feeling if someone is listening is feeling tired, or feeling like lethargic, feeling kind of like foggy or run down, a lot of times it's because your hormones are not acting in the right way. And a lot of times that's a result of inflammation of your body. And inflammation is a result of like too much sugar in your body, or too much, unnatural sugar, chemicals, or stress. Those are some of the kind of drivers of inflammation. And if you can decrease your inflammation, your body just starts working so much better. It protects against diseases, it slows the aging process, and it also optimizes health. And it definitely helps you lose weight when you are decreasing inflammation in your body. So there's just so many benefits to eating the kinds of foods that are anti-inflammatory. And then the spices also have those benefits, and another bonus is that they make healthy food taste amazing. Like, they make you feel like you're in a gourmet restaurant, so you don't feel like you're depriving yourself by eating healthy.
Yeah, this anti-inflammatory or inflammation has kind of been buzzwords, things that we've been hearing more and more and more in the last few years. Not a lot of people understand the deeper meaning behind why is it so important to eat an anti-inflammatory diet or have an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. And why is it that on the average person has so much inflammation? What is going on now in the human lifestyle now that it just a regular person is in chronic systemic inflammation? Can you speak to that?
Oh, definitely. Yes, that is so. A major reason that that so many people have inflammation. And the thing is, you don't even realize. A lot of times, many of us we don't realize we have inflammation until we change the food that we're eating, and then it is so obvious. Like it's like night and day. Your body feels so different, and so this is part of the thing that drove me to start eating healthier. Is when I started eating foods that tasted good, and then my body felt better. It was a game changer
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't just eating to lose weight. I wasn't eating healthy to lose weight. I was eating because every moment of my day felt so much better. And I didn't want to hurt my body the way I'd been hurting it for so many years without even knowing. So the reason that so many people have inflammation is really it's because of the foods that we eat, and it actually has a tremendous impact. A lot of times, sometimes you'll hear stories of people going to see their doctor because they don't feel well, and a lot of times doctors will give a prescription and say here's some medicine to take, but there's many people who actually explore different ways, and by changing the kinds of foods that you're eating, you can completely heal your body in many ways, not in every way obviously, but like in many ways. And it's like it's so powerful. So a lot of the foods that we eat, they're processed foods. They have sugars like fructose and sucrose. They spike your insulin, really quickly and frequently, and that's really not good for fat loss. And because you're having more inflammation as a result, there's a lot of chemicals in the food that we eat. So unless you're eating natural food that you're preparing, you don't know what's in that food. And if you buy a bar or you buy anything in a wrapper, there's definitely some chemicals there. And even when you go out to eat, it's totally fine to go out to eat. I mean, I go out to eat frequently with my friends or with my family, but if you're doing that regularly on an everyday basis, you don't know what they're putting in your food, and they're likely putting a lot of some things that are not what you would want to put in your own food if you're trying to eat an anti-inflammatory diet or just feel really really good. And then finally, another thing that's really a reason that we feel kind of inflamed sometimes is because of stress. And stress, it releases cortisol, and that actually mobilizes blood sugar, and it acts as a systemic immune suppressant,
Mm.
and as a result you have this kind of inflammatory response. So all of these things, stress is caused by our schedules, but it's also caused sometimes because of eating more sugar. It actually causes stress, sugar itself and chemicals. If you can make small changes in the food that you're eating, very small changes, and I will give you some very actionable things that people can put into their diet or it can add to their diet, which is always more fun than taking things out. You can actually feel the difference in 1 or 2 days. Like you'll feel the difference in your body, and you almost will just like become addicted to feeling so good.
I had an experience of going from being very inflamed systemically and chronically and not realizing it to not or being incredibly less inflamed. Um, and it's funny because my husband and I had our license, both our license for our driver's license photos taken, and then soon after we discovered the benefits of going gluten free. And so we decided to do a 7 day challenge, jump right in, and within 5 days, we felt so good that we said, no, 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 we're not even going to do the challenge day, like day 8, where you eat gluten and see if you feel a difference. We just felt so good. And that was about 7 years ago. Well, my husband lost, I can't remember how much he lost, but I lost 25 pounds of water weight. It was just water
Wow.
that my body was holding on to. And I went from looking like, if you know the Street characters, I went from looking like Ernie to looking like Bert. And
Oh
so
my
I,
God.
my face was like round and puffy, and I still have the driver's license photo, and it's fun to show people because I say like this is gluten face, and my husband and I coined the phrase gluten face, and we look at people, and they can be skinny people or people of weight, and it's my very PC way of saying we're fat, but people of weight or people that are skinny, either way, they can have gluten face. You can sort of have it also accompanies dark circles under the eyes, looking almost like they're zombies, clearly not smiling. When we go to Costco, we look at the all the people kind of pushing their carts around, and we look at their face first, and then we can pretty much tell by the look on their face and what their face looks like matches what's in their cart. And so the people with sort of a puffier face, maybe you can't really see the definition of their cheekbones. Maybe they have more than one chin, and they've got sort of just a little bit of dark color under their eyes, and the glazed over, and they're clearly not smiling. And then you look down, and it is just like bread and processed food and giant jugs of milk and lots of cookies and sugar. And then you see these people who, no matter what their weight is, their face looks amazing. There's almost like a shine to it. You can clearly see their cheekbones. Their eyes have lights behind them, and they're smiling and they're laughing. And then you look in their cart, and it's all the organic vegetables.
Yeah.
And you could just tell. And maybe there's like also like a Vitamix in their cart, and there's a bunch of fruit and but none of the processed vegetables and the artificial sugar and the chemicals and all that. And it's just funny when you go grocery shopping now, just play this game. My husband and I love playing it. Play this game and see how many people's faces and the health of their face can match what's in their cart. And it's actually it becomes pretty sad when you see these families pushing around giant packs of Coca-Cola, and they've got like 4 or 5 kids with them, and you just know, and then big boxes of cereal, and that then there's no vegetables in the cart. And those kids are going home and they're only eating and drinking processed foods, and these parents, they're suffering because you can tell they're not happy. They have no energy, and their body's now addicted to the sugar because they have no energy. They need some artificial stimulus just to get them through the day, and so they're caught in that trap. And that's why I love what you're teaching, because something as powerful as an anti-inflammatory diet can rid the body of that waste. So now we finally are clear and clean. I like to explain to people that inflammation is that water that surrounds your cell, and then the nutrients have a hard time getting in. So every single cell, the 37 point something, trillion cells in your body, if there's water around them, it's harder and harder for the nutrition to get through, and the oxygen to get through, and then the toxic junk to get out of the cell. So we're left kind of feeling very toxic and not very nutrified. And so I love what you're doing, and I definitely am excited for you to share your 3 spices, because something as simple as helping us make better choices and then filling our body up with nutritious spices so that we can drop that water, that get rid of that excess, that inflammation, that water in our body. So now then our cells are finally free to make energy, and then we'll start feeling great again. So I'm very, very excited for you to teach that to us today.
Oh, yes, 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 absolutely. I mean, I think it really does make a difference what you put into your body. I mean, it absolutely does. But for me, what was really tricky was just making the transition,
Mm,
from, because a lot of times, a lot of times, like, I mean, I wanted to eat healthy and I would think about it and I would try to, but for some reason, when it was like 8 or 9 o'clock, and definitely 10 or 11 o'clock, everything would be out the window and I would be at the freezer, eating ice cream or eating chocolate or anything that I had promised myself I wouldn't do. And so, actually, what I found is that after balancing your body with the right kinds of foods, like the right amount of, like having a balance of protein, healthy fats, and carbs and fiber, you actually don't crave food like you used to. And that happened to me where I would actually forget to eat because I would be so satisfied and so full. And a lot of my clients who I help now, they also tell me that. They say, I have to remind myself to eat because I'm so satisfied all the time, versus before where it would be like ravaging at any moment or looking for snacks all the time because you're never satisfied. And so once you actually eat the right framework of foods, you don't crave foods. You don't have those sweet cravings or those salty cravings like before. And that's why I think it really does make a difference. Once you put those healthier foods into your body, it absolutely thins out your face. It adds a shine. It actually euthanizes you. I mean, you could like when you're not adding those bad things to your body, your skin is so much younger looking and you feel better. And so but making that transition is really, really the trick. And once you can learn to do that just by enjoying what you're eating and feeling balanced, then it's like you're smooth sailing after that for the rest of your life. So it's pretty powerful to make that shift. Um, so in terms of the three spices, okay, so I'm super excited to talk about these. I'm going to talk about three of the most powerful and easiest spices to include in one's diet for anti-inflammatory effects. And as a result of adding these in your diet, there's all kinds of benefits. So each of them has a different benefit to improve your health. And so the first one is really an amazingly delicious spice. It's cinnamon. And cinnamon is a spice that almost all of us have in our kitchen cabinet. It's so common. You add it to, there's always something that you can add that you feel like you could use cinnamon for. So cinnamon is really, really key because it stabilizes blood sugar and it helps to curb sugar cravings. It's actually what I like to call, it's like a sugar hack, because instead of using a sweetener, which is also not necessarily the smartest way to kind of avoid sugar, because there's other things that Splenda and other sweeteners have. If you add cinnamon, you get a sweet taste, but you're not having that insulin release. And what happens is when you're avoiding that insulin release is that you're storing less fat. So that's how cinnamon works to stabilize blood sugar, because it's not releasing insulin. And as a result, your blood sugar is staying stable and you are storing less fat. It's really, really key for weight loss and just for feeling better. And because it's sweet, you're not craving sugar like before. So cinnamon is really easy to add to your day. I mean, I actually love adding it to my morning coffee. And so I used to like savor my morning cup of coffee. I used to add all of this kind of like really, really sugary French vanilla creamer. And I would add Splenda because I thought that was healthier. And I would look forward to my coffee every morning. And so for me to actually go from adding Splenda and this French vanilla creamer to now what I do is I drink my coffee black with cinnamon, it was a bit of a transition, but I did it slowly. And what happens now is that like every morning I have this delicious fresh brewed cup of coffee. I can taste the coffee and then I add cinnamon to it, which adds that little sweetness, and my blood sugar is stabilizing like right away in the morning. And so that's really, really key.
Is there a reason why you choose coffee over tea, like a chai tea?
Well, a tea is great too. So personally for me, I'm just a coffee lover. And I like to have the quicker caffeine, which I feel like I get from coffee versus tea. But a lot of times I'll have a coffee in the morning and then in the afternoon, I'll have a tea. And I love having like a chai tea bag. That's what I love using. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But cinnamon is great to add into tea also. So it's great for coffee. It's great for tea. And if you're having a morning smoothie, it's great for your morning smoothie. And so really, what I want to just make sure, what I want to get across is that it's really easy. All to use cinnamon, you don't have to cook an elaborate meal. You just sprinkle it into something that you're already doing.
I love
And
cinnamon with yogurt. Like you
oh,
just mix it
yes.
right in with yogurt, or our household's dairy free because we all are allergic to it. So we make like coconut yogurt or cashew yogurt, and then cinnamon is so delicious to mix in with some honey or stevia, just depending on if someone wants to be completely like really low sugar. But honey and cinnamon in yogurt is just my favorite. It's so good. But yeah, there's a lot of ways that we can. I'm just thinking about what other ways, what other foods can you add? You can add cinnamon on apples. That's delicious, right? It's like cut up an apple and sprinkle cinnamon on it. How much cinnamon should someone eat in one day, or how many teaspoons should they strive to include throughout the day?
So if you cinnamon is actually you really need like at one sitting at one time or one serving, a fourth a teaspoon is really even almost too much. Cinnamon can get spicy if you start adding too much of it, so that's why just having a sprinkle like or a pinch in your coffee or tea or on your apples or anything is great. But over the course of the day, there's really, I mean, if you have a lot of cinnamon, there's recommendations to not have like just like a lot of cinnamon, but if you were to have 1 teaspoon a day, that would be excellent. And even if you have a fourth a teaspoon, that's totally fine too. It's when you have that, you can feel the benefits. Like you can feel the power in cinnamon as you're drinking it or as you're having it in your food, either one. Um, and this is something, so I'm sharing my free sweet spice cheat sheet, and that's with cinnamon, the sweet spice, and that's at masalabody.com/learn true health. And that's where I'm going to be sharing my or 5 health benefits of cinnamon, and then also 5 ways to add it into your day. And then I also am so excited because I have a warming fire tea recipe. And this fire tea, it literally is like one of the most comforting ways to kind of have a nightcap or to kick off an evening routine after dinner. And it's a natural tea with cinnamon, ginger, and honey, which are all amazing. And they're all like, especially ginger is another anti-inflammatory spice that's so excellent. And so this is something where, like, in case anyone has this, like a desire to have wine at night. Well, if you actually make a cup of warming fire tea, you will not even want that wine anymore. Instead, you'll have a 0-calorie, luxurious, comforting drink to drink at night. And having that cinnamon, it's that sweetness. And so it's a great nightcap. But there's a number of ways to use cinnamon. And so I love talking about cinnamon because it's sweet. And a lot of times people think that spices are spicy, but there's only really a couple spices that are spicy. They can be sweet like cinnamon, or they can be mild like some of the other spices I'm going to talk about.
Now, does the quality matter? Like, should we buy organic? Are there any brands that you recommend people buy? Or, I mean, should we buy the cinnamon sticks versus the powder? Like, do you have any feelings about that?
I really like to keep things simple because I know that if the simpler it is, the more likely someone is to use it. So, like for example, in my fire tea, I do recommend a cinnamon stick, and that's because you want to brew it over time, and it tastes better with like a fresh cinnamon stick.
Mm-hmm.
But usually, like for coffee, for smoothies, for anything, I just recommend regular cinnamon. There are some studies that show that like certain kinds of cinnamon are safer than other ones, but because we're eating it at such small quantities, it really doesn't make a difference. And that's exactly why I don't want to even say that like you should get one cinnamon over another, because we're not eating it in terms of like 5 tablespoons a day or more. It's just really like a teaspoon or two, really maximum. And so it's completely fine to use any kind of cinnamon. I like trying out different flavors. I have tried out different brands. One of my favorite brands is called Simple Organic, and I love those spices because they're really finely ground, and they don't have too many extra additives. So some spice brands it's very interesting because you'll see the spice in the ingredients, but then you'll also see sugar in the ingredient, and that's something you don't want to have, because one of the beauties of spices is that it actually lowers your sugar cravings and your sugar intake. So there's no reason to put it in your spice also. So Simple Organic is one that I really, really love.
Wonderful. I take a blood sugar support supplement, and it's chromium, vanadium, aspartic acid, bitter melon packed in cinnamon. And
Oh,
so
oh,
it's, yeah, there's just totally packed in cinnamon. So there's no fillers. It's just the filler is cinnamon. And I thought that was always neat that my blood sugar support supplement is just filled with cinnamon. So I get it in a capsule. I mean, I'd obviously love to put it on my food too. Um, but they touted that cinnamon helps the body to regulate healthy blood sugar and lower sugar cravings. And so I thought that was really neat. Have you ever heard of that? Like cinnamon as a supplement?
yes, I have. A lot of spices are actually they provide them as supplements, or they're offered as supplements, and because you can control the amount that you're getting, and for some spices, it's sometimes like people don't know how to use certain spices in their diet, or they just like it's easier to take a supplement. But this is just kind of it attests to the power of spices, the fact that there are supplements that doctors actually prescribe, prescribe these very often. But if you can get a little bit of it into your day, you'll actually start seeing the benefits, even on your
Mm-hmm.
own. At least when you're, unless you have, like some kind of, unless you have a reason to really, really have to have like high doses.
Yeah, we have to consider that spices is herbal medicine, right? So this is fun herbal medicine that just happens to taste great that we get to put in our food, to eat more vegetables, right? To make the vegetables taste better. But we really need to take it seriously, right? So because spices are herbs, and it's just this is a type of medicine.
Exactly. Yes, I agree. Yep. Yep. So the next spice I want to share, I'm excited about this, and I think this is kind of one of those spices that are really popular out there, but a lot of people don't know how to use it, and so I do want to share how to use it. And that this spice is turmeric. And turmeric is a beautiful yellow spice, and I really call it the wonder spice because it has so many ancestral benefits. And so turmeric, it first of all, its number one thing that it does is it fights inflammation. And you'll often see turmeric as a supplement in many places. And so what will, because of the power of it, but also because it's a yellow spice, it looks a little bit intimidating, and sometimes it's hard to understand how to use it. But the benefits, in addition to it being anti-inflammatory, is that it also helps block fat and help lower body fat. And so it actually helps new fat cells. It helps them from not forming. And so it's really one of those wonder spices where it's reducing inflammation, it's blocking fat. This is scientifically proven by numerous studies. And so turmeric, it's actually a very mild flavor. And so when you look at it, sometimes it seems, like I said, almost intimidating, but it's actually a very mild flavor. It has a earthy taste, but sometimes you can't even taste that it's there. It just adds that color into what you're eating. And so one of the things that I love to use turmeric in is having what I call a golden smoothie. And so this is really, it's almond milk, turmeric, a dash of vanilla, and then you could add a little. Actually, you want to add a little sprinkling of black pepper on top, because black pepper increases the absorption of turmeric by 2,000 to 5,000% in your body. And
Wow. Wow.
yeah,
I
it's
was gonna ask because I've heard that add black pepper to your turmeric to activate it, and I was wondering if that was some kind of myth, but no, 2,000 times.
Yes, exactly. So it increases the bioavailability of turmeric. So if you're using turmeric, there's all these benefits that you would get, but it's not available to your body until you add black pepper and have that combination. So that combination is really, really
What's
powerful.
the ratio? Like, how much black pepper to how much turmeric?
So for a cup of of a golden smoothie, I would have 3/4 teaspoon of turmeric, and then I would just have like a pinch of black pepper, so it would be less than a fourth a teaspoon, because it's just a pinch. It's just something like you sprinkle in, and I always like fresh black pepper, and that will help it a little bit more as well. And so then you really get those benefits. So it's just a sprinkle, because sometimes it's like a smoothie. You wouldn't actually imagine having black pepper because it is a little bit of a mildly spicy taste. But when you do it, it's actually quite enjoyable. It's a kind of a different flavor blend, and it's kind of exciting when you're drinking it. So it's a great snack to have in the afternoon to help you also avoid sugar cravings. You're going to be full with this almond milk. It's, if you have the unsweetened almond milk, it's even better because there's no, like, it's always good to keep your sugar down wherever you can. And it's non-dairy. So that's a really great way. And then another hack that I like to share is to add a half teaspoon of turmeric to your eggs whenever you're making eggs. And it's because your eggs are yellow anyway, and you really don't notice that it's in there, and you're starting your day, or if you're having eggs any other time in the day, you're really getting those anti-inflammatory benefits in, and you don't even remember that it's in there because you're cooking the eggs, it's in there, but you're just getting those benefits. So I always make sure to add some turmeric powder along, of course, with some black pepper in my eggs, which I would add anyway, along with salt, and I add a little cayenne pepper as well in my eggs because I like to keep it. I like to have a little bit of spice for me, but that's personal preference.
I love cooking with turmeric, well, because I love curry,
Mm-hmm.
and turmeric is one of the main ingredients in curry, right?
Yes, yes, it is.
What I like to do is I'll get a can of coconut milk and put a bunch of curry and turmeric and extra turmeric in there. Um, and now I have to remember to add the black pepper, but I'll simmer it. I heard that you have to. Now I've heard you have to cook turmeric, or you have to cook curry, um, but to get the nutritional component out of it. And now with your smoothie, you're not cooking it, so you don't need to cook turmeric to get the nutrition from it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have, like, you can just add it on just like that. You can just add it on. There could be different benefits you get when you're cooking it, but no, you do get the benefits just from mixing it in. It definitely, if you're making something like eggs or you're cooking with it with curry, it does taste a lot better if you mix it in there, and then it kind of like you get the flavor more
Mm-hmm.
when you're cooking it in there.
Yeah, because what I'll do is I'll when I'm either sautéing my vegetables in some ghee, or I'm steaming some vegetables, then, or roasting them, just depending on which vegetable. Then on the side, I'm simmering a can of coconut milk with like a tablespoon of turmeric and curry powder and some salt and some pepper. Now I've got to remember to do the pepper, and I let that simmer for a bit and I turn it off, and then that is the sauce that I put on top of the vegetables, or I just let my family members choose how much sauce they want on top of their vegetables, because some family members don't like curry and some do. So but that way then I'm getting the curry onto the vegetables and it's quite delicious. And um anytime you're cooking with like a fat like a coconut milk, it really it lights up the flavor of turmeric, I noticed.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, yes. And that coconut milk, oh my gosh, that absolutely will taste amazing with turmeric. Yes.
And so those who don't like vegetables, or kind of have been reluctant to like vegetables, you get that sauce on your vegetables, and it is unbelievable. It kicks it up to a whole new level. So, and I
Mhm.
noticed that when I went more of a whole foods diet and more like vegetable centric eating, I definitely had to figure out how to make it like delicious. 7 days a week. How to 21 ways to make broccoli enjoyable, right? And and turmeric became one of the first things I went to, because curry anything. I could eat curry anything, right? So if you love curry, you could eat curry Brussels sprouts, curry cabbage, curry broccoli, anything with curry, right?
Yeah.
And so now you know that the curry, the turmeric, has incredible healing benefits. Can help us to lose weight and help us to drop the pounds of inflammation. So that's exciting. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, definitely. I mean, yes, and I mean, I love how you're cooking with coconut milk and those kinds of things. Even the way of cooking is another kind of it's another subject, but it is very important. Just the foods that you're cooking, but also that I found it much more. It can be you can eat healthy if you have these cooking methods using easy ingredients that you combine quickly. And so I have a few cooking methods that are my go-to cooking methods that I can share also if you'd like to after the spices. And those really make cooking very simple so that when you come home after a busy day, it's almost like your food is already ready on the table for you. It's almost like that because things are so easy. And as a result, it's so much easier to eat healthy.
Like you had said, when you were slipping away because you were working this full-time job, you're raising your kids, there was no time left at the end of the day for you. You needed to make major changes to get your health back. But in order to do that, you needed to figure out how to make cooking be seamless, right? Just be natural and easy and fast, and be able to cook from scratch. In a way that was even easier than popping something in the microwave, right? Because we want it to be feel. We don't need to if it's painful, we're not going to do it in the long run, right? When our back's up against the wall, when it's tax season or whatever, when it's month end or year end or whatever, when we're the busiest, we need to make it so easy, this cooking and eating healthy, that when our backs up against the wall, that is not the habit that drops off, that we don't go back to McDonald's or we don't go back to microwaving food or whatever, that we can still, even in the busiest and most stressful times during the year, we can still cook whole foods filled with healing spices for ourselves and our whole family, because it's in the times of high stress that we need to double down on maintaining our habits of health, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, that's so true. And those times when it is like a high stress time at work or a high stress time of the year, a lot of times you go for what's convenient and what's easy, and what that usually means is it's unhealthy or it's takeout. And it feels good at the time, but then you start feeling the effects on your body and you just can't, it's like you can't escape because you're so busy. You just can't think about what to make and what to cook. It's the last thing you want to spend your time on. But when you have some easy go-to cooking strategies, it's faster than going out to eat, and you actually have more energy to be better at your work, at whatever activities are in front of you, whether it's like whether it's taking your kids somewhere or whether it's like tax season, like you said, you have more energy and you have more creativity because you're eating in the right way and you are filling yourself up with the right things. So it's almost critical to eat the right thing so you can sustain yourself and that you avoid stress. And it's you just knowing those methods on how to make it easy for yourself is extremely powerful, and it's very, very doable. I feel like if I could do it, anyone can do it.
Well, I'm definitely excited for you to share those methods with us after you're done sharing the spices.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so we talked about the sweet spice cinnamon, and then we talked about turmeric, which is I call the wonder spice because it has so many natural benefits. And then finally, this third spice, and I mean, there's so many spices, but this is one that I really think is really powerful for health. And it's also pretty easy, though it's a little bit different than the other ones. This is ginger. And so ginger is one of those things you absolutely want to have in your day, especially if you're feeling a little bit out, like kind of like you're not feeling that yourself. Like say you're feeling a little cold or you're feeling some sniffles, adding ginger into your day, it actually what it does is it increases your digestion and it also helps with inflammation. So it decreases inflammation across your body, and it increases digestion. And that's really important because when you're eating foods, you want it to move through your body easily, and you want your stomach to feel lighter and flatter as food is moving through it, instead of it kind of stopping in your stomach and just taking a break there for like 3 hours. You want to keep it moving, so that you can just be at your optimal health and your optimal energy. And so Ginger is a little bit different than the other spices because you don't just sprinkle it. I mean, you can buy ginger powder, but this is one spice that I recommend you actually buy the root from the produce section, and you like the main thing that kind of stops people from using ginger, even myself sometimes, is that you actually have to peel it and chop it. And so a hack I have for that is to when you're peeling it, you can peel it with a knife or a spoon. I actually bought something called a ginger peeler. It's a very small appliance. I actually didn't even realize it was possible, and sometimes some people will argue that it's the same as the back of a spoon, but it is. But it actually helps you peel it off a lot quicker. And then with ginger, what I like to do is I like to cut it, like peel it all at once. Like I'll peel a whole like a whole stem of it or a big piece of it all at once, and then I'll cut it into smaller pieces, and I'll either chop it up by myself, or I have a mini food processor, and I'll just chop up all of that ginger all at once, like on a Sunday or an evening where I'm not busy with other things, and then I freeze that. And that is really key because then you can just pull it out. You can add it to your ginger tea. You can add it to your to the base of your lentils or your beans, which is a really great place to use ginger, or into any other food that you're making. But you don't have to prep it. And so this is another, going back to making things easy.
Mm-hmm. I'll share one that I was turned on to cooking with ginger by my husband. When we were
Uh-huh.
first dating, he has like three dishes. He can make, at the time we met, he made three dishes and they were all gourmet and they were all meant to impress me. And he used them on the like three dates and it worked because we're married. But what he did, what he would buy ginger and throw it, just the whole thing. He wouldn't even, like, I mean, this is just like he's a man, right? Without even putting a Ziploc or anything, he just throw it in his freezer. And so there are times when like the only thing in his freezer was just a bunch of like ginger roots just sitting there. And how he showed me how to cook with it is he would get the cheese grater out and his
Hmm.
frozen ginger, because there's no like peeling at this point, and he would just like put it over the wok. And he would just grate it over the wok, and then when it was enough ginger had fallen into the wok, he would add the vegetables. Like he would put the oil first, and then he just grate the ginger and then throw the vegetables in, or throw the dumplings in or whatever he was making. He only shopped at Trader Joe's when I met him, and he perfected like three recipes from Trader Joe's, which were amazing. One of them being dumplings, um, but yeah, the grated ginger, and I've used it ever since because it's frozen, so it grates really fast, and then it lasts. Because then anytime I didn't freeze ginger, it would get moldy in the yeah, probably because I wasn't using it enough. I need to eat it more.
Yeah.
But I threw it in the freezer, and then it just makes grating it so much easier because you're holding this like rock solid hard thing, and you can run it across the grater really fast. And then it's easier for me. It's easier to eat because I'm not eating these giant chunks of ginger that I'd bite into because I didn't chop it finely enough. So if someone is like unconfident with their chopping skills, then they can try my husband's way.
Yeah.
Which,
Oh,
yeah, and then might not be so good in the tea. Like maybe they'd have to use a strainer or something to make the tea. Otherwise they'd be like drinking ginger sludge. I don't know, but they could play around with it. But yeah, that's how I've incorporated a lot of ginger. And at Costco, in my Costco, they actually sell bulk organic ginger, like this giant in the produce section. They have this big thing that, sort of the size of how when they sell strawberries, the size of the container, like this oversized container of strawberries or raspberries, like this big container. That's how much ginger's in there. And so I buy that and then throw it in the freezer, and that lasts me definitely a few months for sure. But I love your idea of making the tea, because I think about the times when I've sort of been in the kitchen trying to solve a sore throat, or going, okay, I've got my ginger, I've got my cayenne, I've got my lemon, got my honey, and I'm gonna make a concoction, a hot tea, and it is going to solve this sore throat, and it does. And I also love the idea of drinking ginger tea. There's been many times, especially in my pregnancy, because I had morning sickness 24 hours a day the whole pregnancy. And so I was using homeopathics and all kinds of natural remedies, and ginger was my go-to tea anytime I had digestive upset. It just was amazing. It was really, really therapeutic.
Oh, that's so great that you've tried it so much. And it's yes, I mean, I love your tip for grating. That's absolutely key. And so like freezing ginger is a really great way to use it. And then if you can freeze it first and grate it, the key with ginger is that you want to have it in really tiny, tiny pieces. If you're grating it, that's actually excellent because they're going to be in smaller pieces. Or if you're chopping it, you want to chop it really finely, or that's why a small food processor is another way. But if you, a lot of times people will tell me, oh, I don't like the taste of ginger. And I know it's because they actually ate like a full piece of ginger, or they chomped down on a piece of ginger.
Yes, yes. So
Yeah.
I really got into but because of all the guests I've had on the show, they keep talking about doing your own fermented foods. And so over the summer I started fermenting everything. I started with the traditional, making my own pickles, making my own sauerkraut, and then I looked around, I'm like, well, what else do I have in the kitchen to ferment? And so I made fermented ginger, and it
Oh,
is my favorite thing to add to the food. I get the food processor out and I make it really thin, like just absolutely the thinnest you can make ginger. And then I stuff it into the mason jar as much as possible with the brine. And brine is basically the correct ratio of salt to water. I use real salt, so it's this great mineralized salt. And then I put the special lid on it for making fermented foods, and leave it in the pantry for about a week, sometimes 2 weeks, just depending on if your house is cool. In the summertime, it was, if it's cooler because of the AC, it's going to take longer to ferment. But now everyone's heating their house, so now it'll, if it's 70 degrees or more, it ferments quicker. And it is the most delicious thing you'll ever put. These ginger, basically, very thin ginger, cultured ginger, and I mix it into salads. Mix it in, like, once the vegetables are done cooking, and they've cooled off a little bit, then I'll mix that in because you don't want to kill off the culture. But I was at a party and I brought a jar with me, and there was a woman who was like 99 years old. She was almost 100, and I found out she'd never eaten ginger before. And so I handed her my jar, and she loved pickled things, so I thought she'd like it. And she just took a giant like big handful of it, thinking, "Oh, this is like a pickle, right?" And she put it into her mouth like a big mouthful, and I'm sitting there going, "No, oh my gosh!" And she starts chewing, and she goes, "It's too spicy! It's too spicy!"
yeah.
I felt so bad, this woman, and now she doesn't like ginger because it's just too much. If it's too much, it's too spicy, right?
Yes, it's absolutely. It's like kind of like I was talking about with cinnamon, where cinnamon is sweet, but if you add too much, it actually you can taste it becomes spicy. So sometimes less is more, and it's the same with ginger. For ginger, the secret to ginger is that you want to chop it finely or grate it, like you and your husband do, and that's really the secret to get the ginger flavor without making it too concentrated. And so and I have the sweet spice cheat sheet that I am sharing, actually has the fire tea recipe in it, which includes cinnamon and includes ginger. And so in that fire tea recipe, you'll want to grate your ginger or chop it really finely and then strain it before you drink it. So yes. Um,
Awesome, very cool.
so I remembered, so you did ask me about masalabody.com. So I did want to talk to you about that because it has to do with the spices and how I kind of started that. So what I realized, like, so masala means a blend of spices.
Okay, because
And
like tiki
so
masala, right? Like you go to the Indian restaurant and you can order tiki masala, and so I've heard the word masala before because I'm like, I go to these Indian restaurants and it's written there. It's like part of the dish, the name of the dish. So the word masala means a blend of spices. And that word is from India.
yes, yep, that's an Indian word, and so masala body, like what happened is that when I started eating these meals with these spices we've been talking about, and pairing it with those anti-inflammatory foods, I felt like I was eating these gourmet meals. I mean, imagine eating a dinner that's like chicken with turmeric and ginger and some cumin and fresh black pepper. I mean, you feel like you're eating a gourmet dinner, but it's literally like it could be a grilled chicken or a roasted chicken or fish or tofu. But because of those spices, you really amped up the flavor and you feel like you're in a restaurant. And it really wasn't that hard. It was just sprinkling these spices onto it. So I felt like things became so easy after adding these spices, and eating healthy actually felt better than not eating healthy. And so masala body is kind of a dual play on using spices in your food, but then getting a spicy body as a result, like a hot body.
I get it. I get it. Okay, cool.
Yep. So yes, but so I am really excited to share the sweet spice cheat sheet, which has a lot of these things in it, for cinnamon, and then also has a recipe with cinnamon and ginger. So that's at masalabody.com/learntruehealth.
Great. And that link will be in the show notes for easy access. Tell us about your cooking tips for how to be like a super duper busy mom, working mom that also needs to provide for her whole family, and or dad, right? Doesn't have to just be mom. We're both. I think they're saying now that dads are just as involved as moms. Like, my husband, I've said this before, but he's changed. He changes more diapers than I do. Like, he is like totally on board, and he's like 150% in this, and I see a lot of dads doing that. So not just working moms, but working dads, who have to come home at the end of the day and make sure that the food's on the table, or make sure that breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks is always taken care of for all of us. And we have to handle everything else on top of that. So give us your tips for how to make sure we're cooking super healthy foods in as little time as possible.
Yes, I know. That's like the dream, is like cooking super healthy meals in hardly any time, because we all have a lot of other stuff to do. And so I have it's a 3-step process to getting food on the table and making it mindless, and it feeling super easy. So we talked about the foods, we talked about the spices. So what I like to do is I devote 1 hour on Sunday to meal prep, and I really 1 hour. If I need to spend a little more, I can. Sometimes I do it in stages, but 1 hour really is I'm able to get a lot done. And so in that time, I cook 2 sides for the week. And so I use very easy cooking methods like roasting my vegetables so that I'm not standing there for a long amount of time. So what I do is I will heat the oven up to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, 200 degrees Celsius. And I will just put like whatever veggies I might have. I personally like having asparagus and broccoli. And so I'll sprinkle some of the spices we talked about on it, and then I'll just roast it for 15 minutes, and it'll be a full tray of it. And then I have vegetables for at least 2 to 3 days. So there's my vegetable side. Then what I like to do is make a healthy carb. And so I like to make things like one of my dishes is curry garbanzo beans. And so I will quickly make this in the pot, like on a stovetop, or I'll use my crock pot and I'll put in dried chickpeas or dried garbanzo beans. I add things like turmeric, salt, pepper, ginger, and then salt, pepper. I put it in, and I cook it for 8 hours, and I don't have to do anything. Like, it took me 10 minutes to add everything in there, but it's all hands-off cooking. So like the roasting is hands-off cooking, and then also the garbanzo beans are hands-off if I'm using the crock pot. But if I want to use the stovetop, it takes 30 minutes. And I make all of my foods I make it for at least 3 days. So I like to cook the 2 sides on the weekday, and you can replace those with anything else, like any veggies or any healthy carb. It could be sweet potato, it could be quinoa, it could be lentils, but the sides usually take longer. So doing that prep on the weekend, it means that there's food that's cooked in the fridge already. So now the way that I store my food is also really key so that it stays for that 3 days, and it actually can be up to 4 days when I use glass containers. And glass containers, like glass storage containers, they help keep the freshness of food longer than if you're using plastic or anything else. And so I actually tested this over time because I had such a busy schedule that for me to cook once was very key to me being healthy for the week. Like if I cooked and the food was bad before Wednesday, like if I cooked on Sunday and it only lasted for Monday and Tuesday, that would mean on Wednesday I would have to cook, and I usually wouldn't because I just wouldn't be able to. So I tested many different containers, and I found it was a key significant difference to longer freshness by double the time if you use glass containers. So that's really key to making things easy. And then each weeknight, I spend about 10 minutes making an easy protein. And so this could be something like roasted chicken. When I say roasted, it sounds fancy, but I mean like buying chicken breasts, or if you like chicken thighs, and already having them cut, and then putting them on a pan and adding the spices that we've talked about or any other spices that you like, and just roasting it in the oven for, depending on the meat, for however long that's needed. So I, like my husband eats chicken, he eats beef. I personally am a pescatarian, so I eat fish. So I will either roast both of ours, or I will roast his chicken, and then I'll saute fish on the pan, and my kids will eat that as well. And I'll just pair that with like more rice or more bread for my kids. Whereas for me, I'll have healthier carbs and more veggies. I do try to give them veggies, but they are kids, and I'm trying to be realistic. They eat some veggies. They don't eat all of them. It's a work in progress, but they are regular kids. So they do eat these things, but I have to pair it with some things to make it easier for them to eat. So really this 3-step process is that I make 2 sides on the weekend. I store the food in glass containers. And then each weeknight I spend 10 minutes making an easy protein. And so like one of the proteins that I love making is lemon pepper cod. And so all I do, it's so simple. I just heat up a skillet. I use cooking spray personally, or you could use oil, olive oil, coconut oil. And then I just sprinkle the lemon pepper spice, which you can purchase, and then a little bit of salt on it. And I like to add a little cayenne pepper, and I roast it on the stove, or I saute it on the stove, because cod is a gentler fish, and it just tastes so much better. But then like my husband will eat, if he's eating chicken, I'll just do the same thing, but I'll just put his into the oven. So those are a few kind of meal planning techniques that I use. But some of the key parts of that is like using hands-off methods of cooking. So roasting, using the crock pot. I talked earlier about a mini food processor to chop like ginger or garlic, and trying to do that ahead of time all at once, so you're doing it in bulk. That is really key. And then a couple other hacks that I do is that I actually invest in buying frozen chopped vegetables, or veggies that are already chopped. And that's because I have a busy life. I have kids, I work, and I just have found that when I have to chop up like all of these bell peppers or all of these carrots or all of this broccoli off of a head of broccoli, like it usually just ends up going bad. And so I had to get in front of myself and say, you know what, if I buy this broccoli, that's a full head of broccoli, I personally know for myself, I'm not going to cut it. So I'm going to spend a little extra money and buy the chopped broccoli. And since it's frozen, it's like always good. So I don't have to worry about if I'm going to eat it right now or not. And I also try to buy like anything else pre-chopped, like herbs. Like garlic, I will buy the bag that has all the garlic already peeled. And if there's any chopped things like chopped onions, sometimes chopped bell peppers, I'll just buy those because I use them every day, and it's just easier for me. So it's kind of like just like accepting what you need in your life to be healthy, and just doing it. That's what I've done over the years. Is I've learned, once I have these things already ready for me, I'm so much more likely to eat healthy. So I'm just going to do it without even thinking from now on, and it's made a big difference.
I love your tips. I think they're absolutely fantastic. I would say that one thing I would add would be the pressure cooker, the electric pressure cooker, the Instapot.
Mhm.
It's funny. I've had an Instapot for a long time, and it kind of was collecting dust. And then my chiropractor was saying, man, I made such and such in the Instapot. And my mind, because I live in the state of Washington, I'm like, there's Instant Pot? Like that's where I'm like, wait a second, my chiropractor's telling me about Instant Pot? Like what? And he's like, and he looks at me like I have three heads, and he goes, you don't know about the Instapot? You're Canadian. You should know about the Instapot. And I'm like, oh, Instapot. All I heard was Instant Pot. And so I got my Instapot back out. I, brushed off the dust, and I said, you know what, you've saved me so much time in the past. I need to start using you again. And I've been so impressed by you can do that roast chicken in about 15 minutes of on under high pressure. And I love how electric pressure cookers take away the fear of the old school pressure cookers where you're like, is it going to explode, is it going to explode? And you just hit a button. They're programmable, or they have instant programs. But yeah, I put a whole chicken in there. I stuffed it full of vegetables and herbs, and hit 15 minutes under high pressure. And I had a chicken that it would have taken, almost 2 hours in the oven to roast. And I love that. And I also, at the bottom of it, added brown rice. In the past, I've done, beans, where I put dry beans in broth, and then I put a meat on top, like I do ribs, for example. And the beans will soak up all the broth, but they'll also soak up all the juices from the spices and the seasoning and from the ribs. And so the beans end up tasting like the meat as well. Um, but I pressure cooked vegetables 1 minute, 1 minute of pressure cooking, and they were done. You don't want to use just 1 minute, and it was like the consistency of vegetables you get after like 15 minutes of. So I took my Brussels sprouts, and I did 1 minute of pressure cooking, and I had perfectly done Brussels sprouts, which was really exciting because I've always been frustrated with how long it takes to cook Brussels sprouts. So yeah, and I found it very easy to overcook food in the pressure cooker. So you have to really scale back the timing. But that was a lot of fun because I'd get home, I'd be hungry already, and I'd want to already have food done. And so I would just look at my fridge and go, okay, well, that's going to take a half an hour. Well, that's going to take 45 minutes. And then I look at my pressure cooker. I'm like, wait, it's not going to take that long. It'll take 2 minutes. Let's just throw it in there. So I
Yes.
love that. My mom was not really good at cooking, but she was amazing at eating healthy. Like, she was my role model for eating healthy. And she just had a weakness in the kitchen. But what she did do was she would do the crock pot, like you said, in the morning. We'd have our scrambled eggs. She would have loved the idea of putting turmeric in her eggs, and then she would get out the crock pot, throw in whatever roast or meat we were gonna have, and then stuffed it full of vegetables, and a little bit of water, and put the lid on, turned it on, and went to work. And when she came home later that night, we all had a delicious dinner, and the house was filled with the aroma of the food. And that was all she had to do. There was nothing else she had to do. And so that was just her signature, like, I'm a busy working mom dish. So we can really utilize the crock pot and the pressure cooker. I When I was working, when I was living in Vegas, back when I was living in Vegas, I was working as a manager at this international training company. So the business it was a big office, and we had a kitchen. And I was thinking, like, how am I going to eat healthy? Because I was just, everyone in the office ate takeout every day, and it became this like habit. And I was like, man, I feel so bloated. I feel so disgusting. Like, we were eating from every single takeout. And when you live in Vegas, I mean, you have every kind of food. It's kind of like New York City. You have every food at your disposal. And so I just noticed that every meal at that point in time in my life was always takeout, or was always at restaurant food. And so I got a used George Foreman grill, tiny little travel sized George Foreman grill, and brought it to my office. And I would get at Trader Joe's the chicken thighs frozen and the frozen um, artichoke hearts and some garlic and some curry, so which has the turmeric in it, and then some lettuce or like mixed greens and some sesame oil. And I would this was my lunch every day at work to avoid because it had to be delicious enough to not let the takeout food tempt me because everyone else in the office was getting it and the office would smell so delicious of all this takeout food, and I'd sit there with my George Foreman grill at my lunch break and I would grill, one or two pieces of chicken, which didn't take that long from frozen, and then I'd throw on the grill a bunch of the artichoke hearts, and it would cook them really well, and then I'd mix that all up with some mixed greens. I already put the spices on it and mix it with mixed greens, and then add a little bit of the sesame oil on top, and so that was my hack for eating healthy at work. And cooking from scratch and avoiding the takeout food. Um, I guess I could have done it all at once. I never thought of, I mean, I didn't have a large for George Foreman grill. I guess I could have done it like you, done it all on Sunday night kind of for the rest of the week. That probably would have saved time, but there was something therapeutic of about getting up and leaving my desk with a long enough time to cook my food. It kind of gave me a little break at work. So those who can cook at work, definitely try it because it's that nice, mental break from the hectic stress, right? Something about
Yeah.
smelling the spices and smelling all these seasonings is also very therapeutic, right? It's a stress reliever.
Oh, that is so, oh my gosh, what a great story. I just love the fact that you had a kitchen at work. I mean, just to have that, just to have those facilities for people is so, it really is therapeutic. And it's just, you feel more in control when you can bring your ingredients and cook it. I mean, the prepping for the week is really important when when you can't really, when you don't have time to cook during the week. But
Mm-hmm.
if you have that kitchen at work, or if you're working at home and you have some time during the day to do that, it's great. And it's such a good point that cooking is very relaxing, and to see all of these different ingredients coming together, it's like an art piece that you're making. It's blending all together. And the beauty of cooking with spices is that you don't have to be perfect. It's not like baking where every single, like, you cannot go over or under on an ingredient, or the texture will change. If you add more of something or less of something, it's absolutely fine. You add it to your taste, and you can always make it better next time, based on what you learned from the cooking at this time. So I love that you were able to do that, and I think that the art of cooking when you can is really a wonderfully relaxing thing to do.
Absolutely. Now, tell us about some stories of success. You shared your story, which was wonderful. I know you work with a lot of clients. Do you have any stories of success that you'd like to share with us?
Okay, so yes, I have. So I have an 8 week meal planning program, which teaches people how to use spices. Actually, I give people 8 weeks of meal plans with spices and healthy foods, called Spice Yourself Skinny. And yes, and women have actually lost up to 40 pounds and continue losing weight. Like in the 8 weeks, they lose 15 pounds average. But because it becomes a lifestyle, because you learn about the balance of foods to eat, so you learn like that it feels good to have more veggies and a blend of healthy carbs and protein on your plate. And then you're also learning how to add the spices through all the recipes that you're learning in the 8 weeks. It becomes a lifestyle where people like feel like it's much easier to eat the way that I teach them to eat than to go back to the way they were eating before. And so that's really the goal of the program, is you kind of it's like an 8 week boot camp to learn how to eat healthy, and to make it fun and make it and so you never feel deprived. And then after the 8 weeks, many women go on to continue following it as a lifestyle and lose 40 pounds and even more. And so one story that I have is a working mom of 2 kids. She actually just had a baby, and her baby was less than a year old, and she really believed that she needed to exercise a lot to lose the weight. And I told her, yes, exercise is important as a health it's important for your health. And it is important, like once you start eating right, it's kind of the frosting on top to keep everything off and to keep it going. But eating is 80% of losing weight and keeping it off and staying at your goal weight. And so finally she decided to give it a try, because she just believed so hard that she needed to exercise like hours a day and she didn't have time for that. She lost 20, she lost, let me think, what was it? She lost 22 pounds in 8 weeks. And then she went on to lose 29 pounds. And she was at the lowest weight of her life. She loved eating all of the different flavors. She actually used the Instapot all the time with the recipes that I gave. And she started teaching a lot of other women in the program about that. And she went on to lose 29 pounds, and she stayed at that for over a year and a half. And now people see her and they're shocked that she has 2 kids. They just can't believe it because she looks so much younger as well. And she's so fit now. And part of what happens when you start eating these flavorful spices and these health beneficial foods and spices that are anti-inflammatory, your face starts to slim down, your skin gets shinier, your hair gets shinier, and you really look like you're younger. And so so that was really like she feels like it's effortless for her now to eat. Like she knows what to meet, she knows what to make. Her whole family eats the meals. And what was interesting is that she ate meat, but her husband was a vegetarian, and then she had 2 picky kids.
Oh
So
my
she
gosh.
so she was like everything coming together. She figured out like how she could make an easy marinade with the spices and some of the foods, and then she would add like tofu for her husband, she would add chicken for herself, and then for her kids she would just pair it with with more rice, more bread, and things like that. But her kids would love the food as well. And so she really only had to make one meal. She went from making 3 different types of meals to making one meal and just adding a couple different things for the others. So that's one example of kind of a really a working mom. And I won't go into as much detail about this other person, but this woman, she travels like from Asia to the U.S. every month for like weeks. For she'll go for 1 week, the next month she'll go for 2 weeks, and she started following what I was recommending. And recipes are one way to really lose the weight and to really start eating healthy, but you don't always have that luxury, especially if you're traveling. And personally, me as a management consultant, I know what it's like to have to travel, and to make healthy choices along the way. So I have a framework of the types of foods to eat for each meal, like the mix that you want to have on your plate, and a takeout guide as part of my Spice Yourself Skinny program. So she used my framework of foods and my takeout guide as she was traveling, and she lost 27 pounds in the 8 weeks, and she's now lost 41 pounds. And this was like a major transformation for her, because the reason that she started the program was that she actually saw a picture of herself teaching her daughter how to ride a bike, and that picture, she felt like she looked so big in the picture, and she didn't feel like the person she was looking at in the picture was who she was inside and the person that she knew. And that's when she decided, I need to do something about this because it's not going to get any better with my schedule. I need to take control of it. And so she joined Spice Yourself Skinny. And because she learned foods that she enjoyed eating, she actually looks forward to eating healthy. And she wants to eat like that. And that's why she was able to get that 41 pounds off and keep it off. So those are a couple examples of how once you add spices and once you know what to eat, whether you're cooking at home or whether you're on the go, you can actually transform your body without spending hours a day exercising. And of course, exercising is really great to add in when you can. But once you get your eating right, it's really 80% of being at your goal weight. And then you have so much more energy, you're more productive, and you just don't have to think about that all the time anymore. It's something that's taken care of, and you're a high performer in your health and your appearance as well as everything else you're doing.
That is very exciting, especially, hearing that they went on to continue with their success after your program. Now it's not all just fat. It's water. It's that inflammation that they're dropping. Obviously, a combination of that and excess body tissue. They no longer need excess fat. But a lot of it sounds like, like they always say, the first 10 pounds of a diet is water weight, right? So they're, because your program's so anti-inflammatory, so healing, they're dropping that bloat. When my husband and I went gluten free, we dropped that. I dropped the 25 pounds. I went from being round and poofy in the face all the time, um, to really seeing cheekbones, but more so, I had energy and mental clarity. It really was a noticeable difference. And then a few months later, we noticed that our rings were flying off our hands,
Hmm.
and that was scary because my engagement ring's actually an heirloom passed down in my family, and I was afraid to have it resized because it's like an antique. But finally I thought, well, it's what's worse, having it resized or losing it, because our both of us, our rings were flying off our hands. And so about 8 or 9 months after going gluten free and changing our diet and eating more of this anti-inflammatory whole foods lifestyle, and incorporating all these healthy things, and now I get to incorporate more after learning from you. We went in to get our rings resized. My husband went down 2 ring sizes, and I went down 1.5 ring sizes. And
Wow.
and that was before I got pregnant. So I thought to myself, oh, my friends told me the second they found out I was pregnant, they're like, take your rings off, you'll lose them. And I thought that this is silly. I'm not going to take my rings off. My rings to this day are still a little loose. Like, I'm moving them right now. Um, I can easily take them off, but they won't fly off. And my entire pregnancy, they remained loose. I never had a problem like that. And I gained weight, during and slightly after the pregnancy, of course. But I didn't get bloated. I think that's something important because a lot of people don't know the difference in their body between the feeling of inflammation and the feeling of just having an excess fat, right? So if you like look down at your ankles and they're puffy, or you push on your ankle and there's an indent when you push your finger in and then you release it, or you push your finger into your leg and you release it and there's still an indent, like that is edema. That is a lot of inflammation. But it's kind of just general systemic inflammation could make your rings tight certain days. So if your rings are tight some days and not tight the other days, or the second you start incorporating Nagina's wonderful tips, if all of a sudden your rings go from being tight to being loose, that was water weight that you lost. And I think that's really important because that is so healing for the body to get rid of that inflammation. And I love what you're teaching, Nagina. I think it's wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the show. So listeners need to go to your website. Why don't we talk about, so they go to masalabody.com/learn true health. They get access to the cheat sheet and the wonderful tea that you shared. We definitely want them to do that. And then if they're interested in joining your 8-week anti-inflammatory meal planning program that you call Spice Yourself Skinny, which I love that name, how would they then join that?
So for that, once you get my free cheat sheet, then I'm actually going to send you a free recipe book after that. And then from there, once my program opens, it opens a few times a year, then you just open up my emails and you'll see when it's opening up. And then you'll have the opportunity to join. It's open for short periods of time. So when you do see that it's open, grab your spot, because it's only open for that time. And then we go into the 8 weeks as a group. And Spice Yourself Skinny is really targeted for busy, ambitious women who want to learn a lifestyle shift and want to learn how to eat healthy and anti-inflammatory foods that they can continue to eat for the rest of their life. So it's not a fad. It's actually learning how to shift their lifestyle. So once it's open, grab your spot, because it's an 8-week kind of experience that we go through together with a whole group. And every week we're checking in, we're noting down our weight loss, we're noting down our measurement changes, and we're talking about our cooking or eating out, and really giving each other accountability and support. So it's really a fun experience.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, I'd love to have you back on the show. Anytime you want to come back and teach us more about wonderful healing foods and spices. It's been great having you here. And I'm very excited for all of us to incorporate more spices and seasonings to our meals to figure out how to eat healthier. We're always looking how to gain more health, how to learn true health while still maintaining our life as busy as it is. But I think once the listeners begin to incorporate your tips, they're going to notice they have more energy, right? And so then they'll have more energy, they'll be able to get more done, and then they'll notice they'll have more time for experimenting and cooking. So it's this wonderful catch 22 where you start here and you end up going down the rabbit hole and discovering more and more health out of just starting simple, right? With all these very quick tips that you gave us.
Yes, I love how you describe that, Ashley. It's really about having fun in the beginning. And instead of saying, I can't eat this and I can't eat that, it's about adding these spices, combining them with flavorful, wholesome foods that really help you reduce your inflammation across your body. And then you'll see the results right away. You'll see your face starting to slim down. You'll feel that lightness in your step because you'll just have more energy. And and the whole time you're going to love what you're eating. You're going to love what you're drinking. You're never going to feel deprived. And that's really why it works, because you have these really natural health benefits and you just feel so much better. You feel all that energy and your pants start to fit better. And you just end up wanting to do it more.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, wonderful. Thank you, Nagina, again for coming on the show. Very excited to hear from the listeners about their experience with adding your spicy tips to their life. Please, listeners, I'd love to hear from you. You can email me, ashley@learntruehealth.com. Let me know what you thought of this episode, what you thought of Nagina's wonderful tips, or you can join our Facebook group. It's a free group that supports all the listeners. Just search Learn True Health in Facebook or go to learntruehealth.com/group. Join the conversation in our Facebook group. We talk every week about our guests and about all these wonderful tips and tricks and how they're improving our life. Nagina, thank you so much again. Looking forward to having you back on the show at some point. And yeah, I just want to go run to the kitchen right now. You've made me so hungry. I'm gonna go grate some ginger.
Yes, and pull out your Instapot and make it easy too.
Yeah, it sounds great. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, true health seeker. Have you ever thought about becoming a health coach? Do you love learning about nutrition and how we can shift our lifestyle and our diet so that we can gain optimal health and happiness and longevity? Do you love helping your friends and family to solve their health problems and to figure out what they can do to eat healthier? Are you interested in becoming someone who can grow their own business, support people in their success? Do you love helping people? You might be the perfect candidate to become a health coach. I highly recommend checking out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I just spent the last year in their health coaching certification program, and it really blew me away. It was so amazing. I learned over 100 dietary theories. I learned all about nutrition, but from a standpoint of how we can help people to shift their life and shift their lifestyle to gain true holistic health. I definitely recommend you check them out. You can Google Institute for Integrative Nutrition or IIN and give them a call, or you can go to learntruehealth.com/coach and you can receive a free module of their training to check it out and see if it's something that you'd be interested in. Be sure to mention my name, Ashley James, and the Learn True Health podcast, because I made a deal with them that they will give you the best price possible. I highly recommend checking it out. It really changed my life to be in their program, and I'm such a big advocate that I wanted to spread this information. We need more health coaches. In fact, health coaching is the largest growing career right now in the health field. So many health coaches are getting in and helping people, because you can work in chiropractic offices, doctors' offices, you can work in hospitals, you can work online through Skype and help people around the world. You can become an author. You can go into the school system and help your local schools shift their programs to help children be healthier. You can go into senior centers and help them to shift their diet and lifestyle to best support them in their success and their health goals. There's so many different available options for you when you become a certified health coach. So check out IIN, check out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Mention my name, get the best deal. Give them a call and they'll give you lots of free information and help you to see if this is the right move for you. Classes are starting soon. The next round of classes are starting at the end of the month. So you're going to want to call them now and check it out. And if you know anyone in your life who would be an amazing coach, please tell them about it. Being a health coach is so rewarding and you get to help so many people.